Hi there, I'm Cowboy H-Bub, and you're watching Kentucky Cryptids. Now you might be wondering what a cryptid is. That means, from the Greek, hidden. Now, there's a couple little ugly beasts here I'm going to tell you about in this here great state of Kentucky. I'm talking the Pope-Leg Monster, I'm talking Kelly Greenman, and I'm talking about my mother-in-law. Had to do a little checking around. She one of them women, you say her name once, she pops right up out of nowhere. Alright, now this first one I'm going to tell you about, it's called a haint. That means haunt. These are little shape-shifting ghosts, man. I don't know what's going to run through their heads. They consumed a little too many GMOs or something like that. I'm just kidding, I don't know much about them, but I'll tell you who does. Old Todd Marberly, my former social studies teacher. Todd, take it away, buddy. And y'all, I'll see you in a little bit.
So it was from Pennsylvania, Middle Atlantic, through the Shenandoah Valley into Virginia, North Carolina, and from those points they brought the beliefs of haints with them. Witches could be shapeshifters, but in theory so could haints be shapeshifters. You know, for example, the dog that warns you, you know, the ghost dog, and every culture has the ghost dogs, you know, that warn you of pending doom, you know, that kind of thing. Other animals, but in particular dogs, you know.
Speaking of that, I mean, I've read a story about a place called Harington Holler,
Yeah.
and that's in Cumberland County. And there's supposedly some kind of creature that is there, an albino bear monster. But are there stories such as a creature like that being also considered a haint or, you know, a monster?
You know, I've heard of the one you talk about in Cumberland County, Haint Holler, but typically not a widespread thing in my experience, which is all I can relate to, all I can, you know, attest to. Haints were sometimes departed family members. You know, your mother warning you not to go do something, you know, or just maybe an image, a likeness, or a loved one. It was not, they were not always something to be feared. I don't know how far back this belief goes, but it was endemic in Appalachia. A good knocking spirit and a bad knocking spirit, and usually they were to warn you of something. If nothing else, keep you awake at night and give you grief. But the belief was in deep Appalachia that every family had at least one member, one child, who could raise a rapping spirit or a knocking spirit. They could even inhabit pieces of furniture. They could inhabit the attic of your house. They could inhabit your walls and just generally create a nuisance. But sometimes they serve for a good purpose. They could alert you to coming disaster, you know, warn you of dangers to come, that kind of thing.
And so, as you can tell, we had to bring up haints at number 10, because haints are typically spirit creatures. They can also take the shape of monsters, and apparently, my aunt's wicker furniture. And there's also a color called haint blue. Man, I tell you what, that just hain't right. I call this the Bell South Barn. Can you hear me now? Nah, but you know who can't hear me? The victims of the Boonesboro Octopus. But you know who can hear me? My buddy Jethro, who had a one-on-one with the Boonesboro Octopus. Let's throw it over to him, see what he's got to say about it. See you soon.
So my buddy Cowboy H-Bub told me y'all want to know a little bit about the Boonesboro Octopus. Here's the thing. That animal is real. I saw it. I saw her with my own two eyes, and because I'm a farmer in the Boonesboro area, and it came out of the Kentucky River, grabbed one of my cows, and dragged it back to the depths like Cthulhu. And when I saw that, first of all, I pooped my pants. Second of all, I was like, just completely mind blown and started believing in all this stuff. You know, that's why you see all this stuff behind me. I got really into cryptids and voodoo, and I still like believe in the good Lord, but like at the same time, I need to know about the dark stuff if I'm going to be able to fight it. Okay, so first of all, it's real. My grandpappy saw it. There was a little girl actually who had like suction cup marks all over her body one time. It didn't eat her though. I guess it was just playing with her like a little toy. But, some people say an octopus can't be in fresh water. Well, this thing was a government experiment in Fort Knox, for sure. They were trying to gene edit, create some kind of Godzilla or something, and they didn't do it right. And they just said, well, guys, we've done this foobar, so let's take it, we're going to throw it in the Kentucky River. And that's what they did. And it's serious business. It's serious business. Like, I still go fishing, but I got my shotgun with me, I'll tell you that.
This bad boy's coming in at number 9, because there's really only a few sightings, but nonetheless, when cows go missing, we Kentuckians start to notice. Trust me, I can tell you that from personal experience. The Gravediggers, Kentucky's version of the El Chupacabra. They go around Kentucky, digging up the bodies from the caskets, devouring what's left of them. So, let me ask you this. You checked on your loved ones lately?
The Gravedigger is a very obscure cryptid. I don't think that this is a very common one, and I think the reason for that is because it's kind of an antiquated term or name for the creature, because I think we're still having sightings of this particular cryptid, but we don't call it a gravedigger anymore. But I'll get to that. One of the most publicized cases involving a gravedigger came from a man who was driving by a graveyard outside of Jefferson, Wisconsin late one night. As he passed, he saw what he thought was a large man digging in a grave with his hands. So he slowed down to take a closer look, and this caused the man in the graveyard to stand up and turn to face him. The driver would later describe what he saw as a creature part dog and part ape. It was covered in dark fur, had the body of a large, powerful primate, but it had the head of a dog. And if that's not hard enough to believe, the driver actually returned to the graveyard the same time the next night, hoping to get another look at this thing, and he did. It was right there in the exact same spot, still digging. When it spotted the driver, it growled at him and scared him away. At some point, I guess, it caught on to the fact that it was being watched, and it stood up and turned around and looked at him, and he saw that it had the face of a canid type creature. So it wasn't a human, it wasn't just a big person in some type of clothing, it was actually some type of creature. And he gave basically the same description that people give about Dogman, which Dogman obviously is kind of still growing in popularity, but tons of people think they've seen Dogman. So that's why I say that I think we have a new name for the Gravedigger, is because I believe that they are the same creature. I don't think there's any difference. If this creature exists, I think that's what it is personally. But there's not a whole lot out there about the Gravedigger.
Honestly, this one scares me by far. You gotta ask the question, if it likes corpses, does it also like live flesh? We hope we're dealing with the American bald eagle type situation here.
You mean a vulture?
What was that now?
A vulture type situation. Eat like dead things.
Sorry, brother. In America, everything's a bald eagle. The Wampus Cat. A lot bigger than that thing right there. Been seen all over the globe, from northern Tennessee to southern Kentucky. But don't just take it from me. Let my friend Earl tell you about his little encounter with the Wampus Cat. See y'all in a little bit.
The Wampus Cat. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with the Wampus Cat. You know, I've been hunting it for about 3 years now, and I've had several run-ins with it. But, you know, I'll never forget my first run-in with the Wampus Cat. I was out hunting with my buddy Logan, and he brought his dog Spike out. And Spike was a really good hunting dog. You know, he'd been trained, and all of a sudden, you know, he just got a scent, and he went crazy, man. He just went crazy, and he ran off into the woods. And you know, my buddy Logan was like, "Get back here, you know, where are you going? Get back here," you know, and calling for it. And usually, you know, he would come back, but that dog just was bolting. And so we took off after him. You know, Logan took off after his dog, and I took off after Logan because I'm worried about my buddy. And all of a sudden, you know, we're running after his dog, and you just hear the most demonic sounding growl. And it was just deep, and my blood ran cold, man. And after you heard that growl, you just heard, "Yip!" And my buddy Logan, I could hear him scream, but the woods, they were so thick, like I couldn't see him. And so I just kept running through the woods trying to find my friend. And whenever I got to this clearing, all I saw was a small like blood trail, and I look over where the trail was going, and all I see is like the back end of a cat, and this thing is massive. I'm just talking like the biggest wild cat you've ever seen. And I got a little tuft of fur that I saw there, and I made sure to keep it. And then I tried to find my friend, and I just couldn't find him. You know, I screamed around for Logan for a bit, and he no answer. And that was 3 years ago. He's still missing, and no one knows whatever happened to him. And I got that fur analyzed, trying to figure out, you know, what might have got my friend. And the analysis, they said, the scientists said, they said it was no species of cat that they could identify. It was feline, but that they had no records of any cat like it. And so I know that Wampus Cat is out there, and that it's real and it's dangerous, and you have to be careful when you're hunting.
Now see here, this creature also has ties back to Native American beliefs, specifically the Cheyenne, wherein the Wampus Cat is a cursed woman, doomed to roam the earth as the feline for her lack of piety. One way or another, though, you know, if you come across this bad girl, it's gonna be a cat fight for your life. Harry, the Harington Lake Monster. Half Loch Ness, half pig. Don't know if he's a science experiment or a product of nuclear radiation down there in Garrett County, Kentucky. And bad news for you meat eaters. He don't like people eat bacon, and he don't like people eat fish, which means he don't like me.
So the Harington Lake Monster it's short but sweet. Sometimes it's referred to as Kentucky's very own Loch Ness Monster. There haven't been any recent sightings. It seems kind of like an isolated incident, although a lot of people in the area think that, you know, maybe there is something there. And one of the phrases you'll hear pretty often in regards to this particular body of water is there's there's fishes the size of Volkswagens in the water. I hear that phrase all the time. It's crazy how that very sentence is circulated so often in regard to the ecosystem there. But basically, the Harington Lake monster came about. There was a UK professor who was at his vacation home on the lake. And he was out early one morning, just, enjoying his deck, his patio, and the river and all that. He saw something that kind of caught his attention, so he started watching it, and he described it as, basically, a lot of people laugh at this, but he kind of described like a swimming pig monster, because he said that, it was a long, kind of like a serpent or an eel, but it had a curly tail. It had a blunt snout. A very weird description for a sea monster. It's not something you would expect associated with an aquatic creature. So, and I think that's really kind of what set this story up to be a little bit of maybe not taken as seriously as it should have been. Because there could be, a giant fish type creature there that could have been investigated. But the way he described it, it sounded a little bit ridiculous. And he saw it pretty quickly and then it vanished. He claimed that he saw it a time or two more afterwards, but no one else has really seen it. And this all took place in the early or the mid 1970s, I believe. So, we've had a lot of years in between, and nobody's really seen Harry. They call him Harry, the Harington Lake monster, since then, unfortunately. But apparently the fish are as big as Volkswagens there. It could have maybe been a wild pig. I've never heard anybody mention that, but I feel like it's maybe it was a pig, because pigs do swim. They can swim. So maybe that's actually what he saw, was a wild hog.
Now, Harry's kind of a goofy little feller, but we had to show him some love. And ever since the UK professor, yes sir, go Cats, said he saw him, well, I guess that adds credibility. You never know. But one thing is for sure, when you got a Loch Ness monster situation on your hands, you gotta tell the whole neighborhood about it. The Louisville Demon Leaper, a gargoyle type figure out there in old Jefferson County. Not to be confused with my ex-girlfriend Tasha, the Louisville Demon Sleeper. Tasha, I want my Wranglers back! Oh God, her boyfriend's home. We gotta go.
Are you recording? Hi, I'm here to talk about the Louisville Demon Leaper, which is a gargoyle that's known to hop from rooftop to rooftop here in Louisville, Kentucky. You might wonder why I'm out here in these woods. The last known sighting was here in this forest here in Louisville, Kentucky. You think I came off okay? I just didn't want to be too much, and I just wanted to be professional. This is my first really big thing that I'm doing. I just wanted to be perfect. God, did you see how much the Blair Witch made?
Louisville Demon Leaper's got an interesting story, and he had come to our top 10 list because of its history. The old Demon Leaper's been talked about in print, that means words, in Kentucky, but even mention of him came up in New York City. Some people claim that all these creatures are the same as the old Mothman, a race of cryptids that live in solitude and flies away if you pursue them. Bearilla, half bear, half Godzilla.
Half gorilla.
Half gorilla? Oh, hell yeah!
I know that there was a sighting in Montgomery County in the very late 90s where a young man and 5 of his friends went camping, and something started prowling around their campsite in the middle of the night. And for some reason, somehow, he's the only one who managed to see this creature, because he said he stuck his head out of the tent to look around and he saw a half bear, half gorilla, slash werewolf type creature walking around on 2 legs, I guess plundering for food. I don't know. And it scared him so bad that he said that he would never go back in the woods alone again. And I guess they got out of there as soon as they possibly could. But it's funny that none of his other friends saw it. Like, there were 5 other people, nobody else saw it but him.
I'm so glad you called me, or I was online looking for something just like this. I had to get it out. I saw this dang thing way out off the road. I was going to get some wood, and I was way out in the woods, 2 or 3 miles out. There ain't a soul around, had no phone signal, and I just started just hearing something just thumping and grinding on the ground. It didn't sound like a car. It didn't sound like a person. It didn't sound like multiple people. It just sounded like one giant thing just flomping around out there. And it just kept getting faster and louder and louder. And I just jumped in the truck and, started heading out of there. And I could see it just running after me. And it got right up next to me. And it was clawing at me with this big old claw. It had 5 fingers. I could see the big old claws. It was black paw. It didn't look like no bear. It's too fast. And it just scared me to death. I've never seen nothing like it. If it's out there, it's got to have got to some people, and I just feel like we gotta be looking for this thing. You know what I'm saying? If we don't, some people are going to get hurt. You might not believe me, but people need to know. People need to know.
I tell you what, the idea the Barilla had me giddy as a chubby 10-year-old boy in front of a birthday cake, yep. However, after we discussed all this cryptid more intensely with our guest, Sarah Clevenger of the Paranormally Correct TikTok channel, there was a theory that piqued all our interest. Sarah seems to think that Dogman, Barilla, my mother-in-law, the Gravedigger, and our next monster are all the same species. A canine cryptid that goes by many names. You know, my pappy used to tell me a story before bedtime about a beast called the Beast of the Land Between the Lakes. Now, some people call them werewolves, but where we got 1/16 Cherokee in us, we call them skinwalkers.
So the basic idea of this story, whether you believe it or not, because there's a lot of reasons to believe it and there's a lot of reasons to not believe it. It took place in the early 1980s. There were 2 campers out and about at LBL. They came across a campsite where instantly, as soon as they saw it, they knew that a crime had been committed on the grounds. There was blood everywhere. The camper itself looked like it had been beaten with something, beaten with fists, beaten with tools or weapons, as if something was trying to get into the camper. The campsite was absolutely destroyed. There were 3 bodies present. The police, now the story starts to kind of split and fall apart depending on what you believe at this point. So that's the background of what happened. Now, the witness reports is what's really debatable, because you have, like I said, you have communities of people who all believe a different origin story as to how this story got out to the public. Because if you just go looking for this story on the internet, like official information on it, news reports, police reports, you're not going to find anything. So the version that I know came from, this has happened a long time ago. A lot of people have passed away, but there is one woman who's still living. She was a gas station attendant at the time. And she said one night, really late in the night, 2 cops who she knew very well, who stopped there frequently, stopped in, and they were emotionally just distraught to an extreme. And she started talking to him and trying to find out, like, what happened? Are you guys okay? They were covered in blood stains and they were both just a nervous wreck. And they started to tell her about this call that they responded to. They get a call, they go to LBL. This is after the two campers have located the crime scene and they've contacted the police. So the police swarm the area. These two guys go to. They get there, and what they see is the campsite destroyed, the camper destroyed. There's bodies everywhere. There's blood everywhere. There are appendages everywhere. They found the body of a dad, they figured. It was a family. There was a man who he was so roughed up, his arm was torn off. When they found the arm, his hand was clutching a wad of hair. He had deep lacerations all over his body, bite marks, claw marks. One of the cops even recalled seeing the coroner measuring these bites and claw marks because they were so unusual looking. They found the mother. She was in roughly the same condition. She was bitten and scratched all over. They found a little boy who was just as bad. So as they're going through the camper to try to find details of who these people are, they find evidence, of like, here's the belongings for the dad, for the mom, for the little boy, but here's stuff that belongs to a little girl. So then they kind of realize that they're missing a body. So they start searching the area and they find a little girl with her back broken, hanging in a tree, like 20 or 30 feet off the ground. Her intestines and organs were missing. They had been torn out. And she had been carried up into this tree and left just hanging. This is what really, I think, affected these two police officers so deeply, was just seeing this family who went out there for a good time to enjoy LBO and the water and, the nature and all that in such a horrible, horrific condition, just attacked out of nowhere. And they had no idea what it was. They started to kind of try to piece it together. And they're like, well, we don't really have a bear population here, so it probably wasn't bear. We don't think that it was like a big cat because it's not consistent with the type of attack that you'd see from a big cat. But then they had the body up in the tree, so they're like, well, something carried this little girl up in the tree, obviously. At some point in the night, and this is when the two officers left and ended up going to the gas station and kind of like basically trauma dumping onto this woman that they're friends with, the attendant there. The government entities showed up, the men in black, the men in, unmarked vehicles, whoever they are, some form of government entity showed up and put everybody off the property. Told them to all just go. They're going to take over. Don't touch anything. Don't take anything. Leave all your, anything you've collected. Leave it. We're going to take over 100%. So that's when the two cops end up at the gas station telling their story. I believe at least one of the police officers at the time of this investigation was still alive, but I'm not entirely sure. So I can't speak to the validity of these two people. I have heard that these two officers were verified by the team, the cryptid team that I mentioned. I've heard that their employment was verified so that they know for sure that these two men weren't just random people claiming to be cops. They actually were cops who were there, most likely. But the primary witness in this situation is the gas station attendant, and she gave a very heartfelt, authentic testimony about this. That would, to me, I always look for signs or, indicators that someone's just trying to spin a story. But I've watched her interview over and over and over, and I really feel like this woman's being 100% authentic.
What else can I say about the beast of the land between the lakes? If there really was a cover-up and people got killed, hell, that's just awful. Since there's no paper trail, and now there's no blood trail, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Some legends we'll never unravel, but just like Bigfoot, we may come to find out this one missing species has been hiding for all these years. Or maybe the Native Americans were onto something, and the land between the lakes monster is a skinwalker, waiting to judge the next set of campers trespassing on sacred ground. The Pope Lick Monster. Half man, half goat. Kind of like Satan himself. Now, you might be wondering, how many licks does it take to get to the Pope Lick Monster? Well, there's Paint Lick, there's Yeller Lick, there's Blue Lick, hell, there's Red Lick. A lot of licks to get to that Pope Lick Monster, and if you ain't careful, he'll give you a licking himself. See y'all, lickety-split. Now the reality is, folks, whether this cryptid is a legend or something more, there is a real body count, with a paper trail, associated with this legend, because many people have died at the Pope Lick Trestle just outside of Louisville. And some would say that the legend of the Pope Lick Monster has caused real harm. Richard Stockman, an authority on the desk there, had this to say.
The trestle has been responsible for dozens of deaths and countless injuries, and has been a source of trauma for many victims, families, and railroad employees.
Many people have committed suicide, been killed by trains, or died while partying at the trestle. The most recent tragedy at the trestle was a fatality that occurred in 2019, but injuries and fatalities date back at least 40 years. The short film, called The Legend of the Pope Lick Monster, came into a negative light when it was released in 1988. But we know the director of the film, and he said he created the film as a cautionary tale. He does not endorse this occult or legend as many would think he would. Nonetheless, he made the cult classic short film, and we'll show you a little clip from that now to give you a taste of what the legend is all about.
And you all are you're gonna like darken me and change my voice, right? Yeah, so, back in college, I was a bit of a partier, and, it was my senior year, and I had a group of friends that was, they knew I was into the paranormal, and they said, hey, we're going to a party at Pope Lick, at the Trestle. Have you heard of the Trestle? And I had heard of the Trestle, and so, I tagged along, and, so went to the party, drank some alcohol, did some drugs, and while we were partying, suddenly we hear a scream, and somebody, I won't mention who they were, but I knew them a bit. We had some classes together. They had also, gotten very drunk that night, and fell, and yeah, they died. They died that night. of course, I had to call the paramedics and the police, and they came out and wanted to talk to everyone. And that took forever. And so, by the end of it all, we were all absolutely exhausted and ready to go home. And as we're, getting ready to leave, we just hear this demonic sound, and we turn around, and we couldn't even really tell what it was. It was kind of just like enshrouded in shadow. But you could feel its presence, and it was, just something that wasn't right. It wasn't of this realm. You could feel that in its presence. And, to this day, I fully believe that as we were leaving, we saw the Pope Lake monster. And if you were to ask me, did that death happen because of that creature? I would say, yeah, absolutely.
I was just looking at them there mountains over yonder, thinking about the cryptids that didn't quite make the list. I'm talking the Bigfoot, the Mothman, the Milton Lizard, and the Devil Monkeys. Hidden in our hearts and in the mountains. Now, we saved the best for last, as this one has the most evidence behind it. If you're like me, you've been probed by aliens before. So I'm going to let old Geraldine Stith take you down to Kelly, Kentucky on a warm night in 1955. Take it away, Geraldine.
They didn't have plumbing, so you had to go out to the well to get water. So Billy Ray decided to go out and get some cold water, and as he was there, he heard something up in the sky. He looked to where he heard the sound, and there was this big silver object with all the colors of the rainbow floating behind it, he said. Didn't know what it was, ran in the house, slammed the door behind him, and told everyone what he just saw. Well, they just kind of skidded him away and thought he was just trying to fool with them and try to tell him, just stop. Maybe it was just a shooting star. He said no, he knew what that was. He knew what it looked like. Meteor shower, maybe, because they had been having a lot of those that month. No, I know what a meteor shower looks like. It wasn't that. And he kept on. Well, my dad finally told us, says, listen, let's go back out there and you tell me again what you saw. So they walked out to the well. He pointed toward the sky, told him again. My dad still tried to ration with him, rationalize the whole thing. It was shooting star, meteor. No, it wasn't none of those, he said. I know what those look like, Lucky, he told him. No. So they start going back to the house. And as they're going back, lo and behold, out in the woods behind the house comes this little 3.5 foot tall being. It had big glowing eyes, huge ears, a big round head, and its arms nearly touched the ground, and it seemed to be floating on top of the ground. The legs were not moving. They didn't know what it was, so they run into the house, slammed the door behind them, and said, something's out here. Well, of course, they're all thinking, all right, Billy Ray done got lucky out there to go along with his little joke here to try to scare the girls. Because you got to realize these were all people in their early 20s. Billy Ray's wife was either 18 or 19 at the time. So that's what they thought. But they kept on. And my grandmother told my dad, said, you need to just stop. I've got to get these kids to bed. And you're not helping any. Well, she knew it was serious when one got a shotgun, one got a rifle, one went to the front door, and one went to the back. And she thought, okay, let's see about this. So she heads to the back door where Billy Ray is. Squats down beside him and says, Billy Ray, what did you see? And he says, Miss Glennie, I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, I hope you never have to find out. So they sat there a while, and they can hear everybody in the house, talking and carrying on. And lo and behold, it wasn't long till one of them come around the corner of the house to where they were sitting. Grandmother seen it, screamed, fell to the floor. Everybody heard her come running. And she told them, I saw it. There is something out here. There really is. About that time, they hear a shot ring out in the front of the house. So they take off toward the front. Uncle JC shot one through the window. Well, Billy Ray decides to run out the front door. And as he's standing there under this little stoop, this clawed hand comes down and tries to grab his hair. Well, my Aunt Eileen grabs him and yanks him in the house. And my dad runs out there and shoots it off the roof. Somebody yells, well, there's one in the maple tree. And he looks up toward the big tree in the yard. And sure enough, there's one sitting on a branch. So he shoots it. It floats to the ground, rolls off, and he's gone. By the time it's over with, they shot him off the back fence. They keep shooting them away from the windows and doors. They don't know what these things are. They keep coming back. They're not dying. They're not falling on the ground. What are they? Well, everybody's in hysterics. The kids are crying. June's about to lose it. They don't know what to do. They can't kill these things. So my dad tells them, listen, we're going to go to Hopkinsville and we're going to get help. Since Hopkinsville was about 7 miles down the road, he says, let's hold on. We'll get help. So he gets them settled down and quiet. And as they're sitting there waiting to leave, they hear one of them go across the tin roof. They can hear its little nails clacking across the roof. Well, this really gets them all crying. June's really about to lose it. My dad doesn't know what am I going to do with these people? So, he gets them quiet again. He says, okay, just hold on. We're going to get out of here. So they wait. It's quiet. He says, let's go. So they hit the trucks, head to Hopkinsville. Here they are in the middle of the night, 11 people from the age of 50 to 7, running in on this one little officer in Hopkinsville. So they're all trying to tell him, what has happened. And he's trying to understand. And he says, you got men attacking your house? And my dad's telling him, you're not understanding what we're trying to tell you. And finally the officer says, well, just hold on, I'll get some help. So he calls Chief Russell Greenwell. Greenwell tells him, keep them there, call Fort Campbell, call the paper, call the radio, just get whoever you can. We're taking some people out there. So by the time it's said and done, you've got several cars and trucks going back out to Itsy Bitsy Kelly in the middle of the night. It's pitch black dark. They don't have any street lights or anything out there in the country. And they're pulling up in the yard, and it just feels weird and strange. Evidence something happened because there's shotgun and rifle shells all over the yard, holes through the screens. What were they shooting at? They searched everything. They searched the buildings they had. When they were pulling up, the car that had some of the officers in it saw a green substance glowing by the fence where they had shot one. So, of course, they ran out there to check it first thing. Well, when they got up to it, you couldn't see it anymore. The only time you could see it is if you backed away. So what do you do with that? So the chief told my grandmother, said, Miss Glennie, I am so sorry, but there is nothing here. We can't do nothing to help you. Said their goodbyes and left. Now, the next morning after it happened, yes, there was a shoulder-to-shoulder grid where some of the soldiers come out Fort Campbell and searched the grounds. There was helicopters and stuff flying over looking. So, they did do searches, but as far as any protocol that should have been done, there was none. They didn't rope off anything. They didn't take samples of anything. They just wanted it gone. They wanted it gone. They just did not want this to get out any more than it already had. And so they just tried to get rid of it. And the way they got rid of it is to say that it was just a bunch of uneducated hillbillies and this didn't happen.
The Kelly Green men earned the #1 spot because the most evidence is out there to corroborate this event. As well, the U.S. Navy, yes sir, released footage of a UFO, and that's a more verifiable source than most. So maybe the aliens really are here. But since they're hidden, but living on and around Earth, that makes them a cryptid too. Well, that's all the time we got for y'all today. You ever find yourself in the hills of Kentucky? Swing on by, come get you a plate. I make a mean fried octopus. Well, I'll see you around. Take care now.